And I'm going on mute. Take it away, Lene.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight for how to strategically, can't talk, position yourself in a crowded job market with Sam Harper. We are the Denver UX Newbies. There's our logo there. And I'm Lene. I'm one of the Denver UX Newbies board members or organizers. We also have Chelsea and Ryan in the house. You want to wave, Chelsea and Ryan? There they are. And we have some important stuff to talk about. Okay, hold on. My computer's a little slow right now. So our next upcoming event is on February 23rd with Kate Powell. She's going to be doing a workshop that just is a continuation of tonight. So just applying what we learned tonight from Sam in more of a workshop format. And we decided to do a super cool and exciting raffle for some UX books. We have a list of really interesting books that you can pick from if you're a winner. And to win one of these books, you can be entered into the raffle if you go find us on Denver UX Newbies on the Denver UX Newbies Slack or Denver UX Slack. And I think the link is in the chat right now. If not, we'll be sending that out later as well. So in that Slack channel, just tell us who you are, why you're here, whatever you want to say. You don't have to follow my prompts. I just threw that animal question in there because that was the weirdest interview question I've ever gotten in my life, is what animal would you be? So whatever you want to say, you don't have to follow that. We have some really important people in the house tonight as well. We have James Vinn, president of SDXD, who will be telling us about his upcoming event. And then we also have dano.qualls, head of product design from Hectic App, who will be telling us about a really cool program he has in mind, and he wants to get some feedback from us. So I'm going to hand the floor over to James.
Thank you so much for that intro, Lene, and just Happy New Year to everyone. We hope you're enjoying, whether you're live or watching this back on the recording. Just want to say a huge thanks to the 400 plus people who RSVP'd for this event between both of our organizations. And actually a special shout out to Amber Burke and all the students from the design lab who are joining us on their virtual field trip. Super amazing idea. And we're grateful to you and everyone who's here. Also, huge thanks to Lene, Ryan, and Chelsea for their hard work orchestrating this event and this group. We're going to continue collaborating, and we can't wait to bring you some more amazing events this year. And last off, we hope you enjoy this great event from Sam. So just a quick little plug, and I'll put the link in the chat. We've got an awesome event coming up tomorrow from Riza Selçuk-Saddam. He's actually a product design manager over at Facebook, and he's a two-time member of the Trace Comas Club. That's right, he brought Messenger to 1 billion users and to $1 billion in revenue as a manager. So if you're available and interested, we hope that you join us. I'll throw that link in there. Thank you so much again, and please enjoy the event.
Thanks, James. You're always so great at being the master MC. Appreciate having you here tonight as well. And next up, Dano, tell us about your mentorship program that you have in mind.
Everybody, I'm Dano. I've been a product designer, product manager for about 10 years now. And as I'm watching a lot of what's happening with the UX Slack group, I've seen a couple problems happening in Denver, and I'm sure it's happening in every city as well. Those two problems are that there's a lot of new bootcamp grads coming out a couple times a year from many different boot camps, but there are very few junior roles for them. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I've seen companies and experienced designers also having problems. And that is that designers need to grow as leaders. They want to go to mid and senior and lead roles. People ask, what have you done for leadership? And sometimes the answer is nothing. And also companies just need fresh sets of eyes looking at things to explore their problems. I would love it if I could tell you there was an internship program where we would let people in, bring them on long-term, give really in-depth structured intern programs for them. That exists in some places, but it's really hard to get lots of companies on board, and it's hard to make it accessible and open to lots of junior designers as well. So what I'm thinking a possible solution to this problem might be to have a rotating mentorship or on-the-job shadowing program, where it'd be kind of a light version of an internship, where once you're out of a boot camp, you could go spend some time rotating between a few companies and do real work. So once you're fully trained up and you're looking for that first job, you could go on for a period of time, maybe it's a week or 2 weeks or a month, working in a company, maybe it's part-time, maybe it's full-time. We're still figuring out all what that looks like. And you would do real work to add to your portfolio to help prepare you for your next job interview. And the companies get a chance to learn about mentorship and bring in fresh people to help them with their products. So I've got a couple phases I want to really explore this idea. The first, as I want input from you all, the junior UX community. They'll show this link, so don't try to write it down because it's way too long, it's crazy. But I'd love to hear from you. Is this a good idea? If this existed, would you get on board with it? Someone asked, is this paid? And I will ask that about the companies. I would love it if it were. I would love if companies would bring you on for a month and pay you. That's a proper internship. I want to explore that as well as just a shadowing program that's a bit less full-time, a little bit lighter, just a way to kind of get more experience to more people. When you pay people, you really limit it to maybe 2 to 4 designers. I like to open it up to hundreds across many companies. So we'll see. But once I get input from you all, I will then take that to the larger Denver UX community and ask everyone to give me feedback from their end, from managers and senior designers, people who work at companies, and ask, what do you all think? And I'll see if there's a match. I'll see if the junior designers have something in mind that also matches what the leaders have in mind. And if it works, then I'll try to get the committee together, some junior, some senior folks, and see if we can start this rotation that would be kind of a gap filler between your boot camp and your first role to see if there could be kind of an informal mentoring network. So yeah, please give me some feedback in a Google form. Feel free to reach out to me later over email or LinkedIn. That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I'm off mute. Hi, I'm back. So now up for our main event, we have Sam Harper here tonight. He is a software-based user experience designer and UX career coach based in Salt Lake City, Utah. Sam runs a bi-weekly live stream on LinkedIn geared towards career advice for new UX designers. And that's actually how I know Sam. His program is really awesome, and I highly recommend everyone to go check him out, follow him on LinkedIn, and check out that live stream. Super helpful information. And I also wanted to mention that his UX work has been featured by many big name companies, including Walmart, Daimler Trucks of North America, Orange Theory Fitness, Costco, and the National Highway and Safety Administration. So I'm excited to see this, what Sam has to say tonight. So Sam, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor in 1 second here. All right.
Okay, welcome everybody. Let's see, let me go ahead and share my screen first so you can actually see what I'm doing. All right. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Sam Harper. I'm super excited to talk to you guys today because I know that there's a lot of people who are new to UX design. Maybe some of you are you're new into your first UX job. Some of you may be coming out of boot camp or still in a boot camp, and you're still not finding that work quite yet. So I've got some strategies that hopefully should help you guys quite a bit. So I will also be providing show notes. So it's essentially, I wrote up this long list of basically what I'm going to be talking about. There's actually some extra things in there because I had to cut it down, but like you get like the I guess like the uncompressed version of what I wanted to talk about. So you'll get quite a bit. I'm going to post those show notes at the end, so don't worry about those right now. But what? Okay. So yeah, basically, introductions aside, you know, I'm a UX designer. I've been at 2 agencies, and now I work in-house. I came from a boot camp. Actually, I came from Career Foundry, so that was from October of 2016 to about April of 2017. I've been in the same position that you guys are right now, so like I completely get like how tough it can be for juniors to find work. So hopefully my strategies will be able to serve you guys pretty well. So a couple of notes. I will go fast, so please make sure you're paying attention. Don't be just like walking around kind of like half listening, because like you're really going to be able to get the full when you're just sitting here, completely focused on what I'm talking to you guys about. Uh, Presentation notes will be provided at the end, so don't worry about taking notes or anything. I just want you guys like here present, listening to what I'm saying. And I do have some like little homework assignments. Don't worry, I'm not going to be grading them. There's quite a bit of you, so I'd actually prefer not to, but they're just some little exercises that I've got for each of these sections that we're be covering. So I really just want to ask you at the end of the presentation, expect to do some work, because I want you to put into practice what this whole presentation is about. All right. So as you guys have questions, just go ahead and post them in the chat. I'm not going to be reading them personally, but these questions will be fed to me, and I'm going to be discussing them and answering them on a one-on-one basis. And we'll be going through those as soon as the presentation is finished. So if something does come up and you want to talk about it, then please go ahead and post it in the chat, and then we'll circle back to it at the end. All right, so I actually wanted to start with this quote from Calvin Coolidge, because I think this is really important to new UX designers when you're trying to get into UX for the first time. It can seem just incredibly difficult, and I remember times where I was looking at all these other people that were in my peer group at Career Foundry. It looked like they were way further ahead than me. Looked like they had all these skills that I didn't have, and I just constantly felt inadequate about it. And I want to go ahead and read this for you because it's super important. So he said, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistent. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men and women." I updated that to be 21st century standards. Men and women with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan on has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. So really what that boils down to for me is it's really not about what kind of background not so much about what kind of background you have, what kind of education you have, what kind of opportunities you've been presented with. Really, the people who make it in the long run are the ones that just stay persistent and are able to work through a lot of these rejections, a lot of the setbacks, a lot of the struggles that come with making a career change. So first, I want to ask you guys, how is the job search going? So what I did is I posted a link in the group channel. It's going to take you to a Google Docs form. So I'd like to take 2 minutes for you guys to just go ahead and find that link in the Slack channel, fill it out, or not in the Slack channel, in the Zoom channel, fill it out, and then we're going to go over what we found. So just go ahead and take a couple minutes and then fill out that link. It should look like this. I mean, it says Career Foundry here. I'll just change that. Change it to Denver UX Newbies. Just pretend it says that.
So Sam, just to clarify, the first question, how far through Career Foundry are you? Do you want that to say like how far through your boot camp or something like that?
Oh yeah, when it says Career Foundry, just ignore that. I grabbed the wrong link. So if whatever like applies to your whatever boot camp or whatever education, like if you are, replace it with like, are you in some kind of educational program?
Cool, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll just go ahead and go through that. Let's see. Give me a sec, guys. How's everybody doing? You guys filled it out? Just give me a thumbs up when we're good to go. I'll give you guys like one more minute and then we'll get going. Oh my gosh. All right. So we got 135 responses from you guys so far. So looks like most people are saying they're still studying. They have quite a ways to go. To a lesser extent, we've got still studying, but I'm nearly finished. I just recently graduated, and I graduated a long time ago. How is the job search coming along? We've got this whole what is it? With the painters, they've got those like those card palettes. That's what that reminds me of. So the vast majority says haven't started looking. We've got I haven't found work, but I have some leads. I am freelancing. I've already secured an internship employment. That's very, very exciting. And what emotions are you feeling right now? So it looks like what we've got the majority of responses is somewhat nervous. Oops. We've got somewhat nervous, stressed, hopeful, excited, like an anxious wreck, and frustrated. All right. So I wanted to go through that whole exercise because I want to it's like these are, this is a lot of emotions that people experience when they're going through a job search. So like I said, guys, this was me 3 years ago. Like I was in the same position as you guys. I remember applying, I had applied to about 500 jobs. I'm serious, 500. And I counted them. And that's how many I got rejected from when I was in Career Foundry and also when I graduated. It took me about 7 months before I finally got my first job. And even then, I mean, I felt like I got really lucky. I was doing a lot of things right, but there's also a lot of things that I could have been doing better. So that's what I'm here to help you guys with. So this is a screenshot from an actual email that I got from one of those positions that I applied to a very, very long time ago. It says, "Hi, Samuel. Thank you for your interest in this company and your application for this position, for the UX position. We appreciate the opportunity to learn more about you and your experience. Insert generic flattery here. We've all heard it. We, however, regret to inform you that we won't be moving forward with your application for this role on your occasion, blah, blah, blah. Nonetheless, we'll keep your information on file. We wish you success. Best regards, the company." Okay. And the reason why I wanted to put it in there is because like this is so common to so many people that it can almost just be like hearing a broken record, and it sucks getting this kind of thing. But hopefully what I'm going to work you guys through to basically help you be able to handle these more effectively. So whenever I work with new UX designers, what I've found is that the majority of them, and I'm jokingly saying based on ultra hyper scientific analysis, a lot of them are career changers. So these are people who are coming in from all these different backgrounds. You don't really see a whole lot of people who are coming directly from college and getting into UX. If anything, colleges I've noticed do need to catch up on that quite a bit. It's mostly people who are coming from psychology backgrounds, from graphic design backgrounds, from illustration, from in my case, I came from a biology background. I was like way like left field. Like, how the hell did I even get into this field? Even to this day, I kind of look back and like, wow, how did I make that work? It seems like a lot of people talked. They range from 20s to about like 60s. Most do have a college degree. Many are new to tech, so this is your lot of first positions for a lot of people. And it covers a wide variety of skills and experiences. So what I found that a lot of career changers are facing is that changing careers is intimidating. That's totally understandable. It's definitely not easy to have to go from one career that you probably got your degree and you got your education and then shifting over, like taking all that experience and just like moving it, yeah, putting it in a big like moving truck and then moving it over to UX. Age discrimination is another thing that I have heard about quite a bit, which is, oops, it's an unfortunate thing that we do that I have heard. I've obviously never experienced it myself, and I've also heard some, some people in their 60s who kind of say the opposite. They're like, "No, I don't feel like I've been discriminated," but I may as well bring it in there. Self-doubt is obviously another big thing. It's the whole imposter syndrome. Like, I don't feel like I'm good enough even if you're competent to be able to do this. You get a lot of conflicting information. So you're telling people how to, all these, you've got a million different people. The common saying is that opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, and you're going to get a lot of conflicting stuff out there. So that's the thing that people they have to wade through. And also a very unique challenge to you guys in particular is getting hired during a pandemic. I have noticed that obviously a lot of companies are, they're cutting costs. They're trying to be able to weather this storm. It's interesting though, because I actually have noticed some companies that are almost like bulletproof to the recession and even thriving. So definitely don't want to lose hope in that front, because there are some companies that are actually doing quite well, and also money invested into a program. So whether you're in college right now, or you're going through a camp, or you're doing some kind of self-study program, whether it cost you, it was a $10 Udemy course that you paid, or a $10,000 boot camp, or a $100,000 bachelor's degree, you are investing not only time, but you're also investing your money, you're investing your energy, and you're no, not only physical energy, but also a lot of emotional energy, because you do have to uh, you have to spend a lot of time like learning this material and just building this unknown skill to you. So these are the skills that I'm hoping you guys will gain, where you know your career superpowers. I'll give you some. Oh, actually, we're not going to do the superpowers, but that is going to be on the show notes, and that's going to be for the next presentation. But we're going to go over some portfolio tips. We're going to go over where to find real world experience, how to get yourself seen by people who matter, and increasing your chances of getting hired. Sounds good, guys? All right. So I'm going to talk about a few different things. So the first topic that I want to talk about is getting clear on your value to UX, building your credibility and experience, your resume and your portfolio, and even some ideas of what you should be doing once you've got that job. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is building your credibility and experience. To touch on what I wanted to, what I was going to initially talk about was something that I call your career superpowers. Basically, what this is um, looking at the field that you come from, about your interests that you currently have, the skills that you've developed over time, and uh, really, what I encourage you to do first and foremost is just look at how this uh like what you've done, whether it was customer service, it was I don't know, it was like you were working in like a chemistry lab and you had to like organize things, you had to work through like sampling biases, you had to do multivariate statistics, or if you come from a graphic design background where you really understand, like kerning and structure, like the gutters and like how to make things look very visually appealing, why design is set up the way it is, or you're coming from a teaching background, you really understand how to communicate with a bunch of little humans. I think everybody really does bring a certain set of skills in from user experience. So I really encourage you to just like really think about that. Think about like what your career superpower are, and what really makes you stand out as a user experience designer. Because like I think a lot of times we tend to undervalue what skills we already do have, and I say build on those skills and really use them as your personal brand. All right, so uh, one of the things that I wanted to start off with is how do you constantly improve? Uh, and how do you constantly get better, become a better user experience designer? You know, you never, what I think is interesting is in some other fields you never hear people say, um, you know, call themselves like law shamans or doctor shaman. There's like, you know, like experts or gurus. They say we have a law practice, or we have a, you know, like a physical therapy practice. And I feel like it's really the same thing with UX. Is even, you know, if you've been doing this for 20 years, you're always going to find new things that you're learning about. Um, and the first, you know, what I would like to direct you guys towards is, as far as learning resources, there's a lot of really great resources out there, because once you graduate from your boot camp, or you graduate from whatever program it is, whether it's self-study or not, like these are some that I do want to direct you towards. So we've got the Interaction Design Foundation. This is an awesome group. It costs, I think it's like $15 a month. Really recommend that. Medium is actually a phenomenal place to just absorb a lot of information that many UX, you know, many like very weathered UX designers out there have. Practical UX Weekly is actually something that I recommend as well. So this was taught by Drew Bridewell. This is found on Lynda. I can say for a fact that this guy actually did help me quite a bit. And also Udemy in particular. Joe Natoli is somebody who's like, he's got some stuff that I really recommend you guys dive into. So then I also want to talk about building your skills, because you know, obviously like learning the material is one thing, but then putting it into practice is another. So the first thing I want to open up with is look at a lot of sites and apps and pretty much anything that just, you know, it feels like it's got a very good experience to it. You know, the saying is that good design is pretty much invisible, because if you're doing your job well, then there and it's done well for a reason. You didn't notice it for a reason. If it's awful, you know, then it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. But I definitely encourage you guys, just like look at like Amazon, look at how I don't know, just like any, you know, any sites you can think of, or any apps that have been like set up in a very efficient way. Break down how they're set up. I really encourage you to get like a sketchbook and just like draw out these wireframes of like how it's set up. And you say like, okay, you know, they set it up this way because um, probably because like it has this kind of impact. You could look at the information architecture, like why did they structure this the way they did? Um, because I like, yeah, I'm personally a fan of the slogan, good artists copy, great artists steal. Um, and there's a lot, you know, you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel as far as like identifying uh, how good UX is done. So definitely learn from the experts that are already out in the field, or because you're going to be able to get quite a bit from that. Look at what they're trying to accomplish. Get a sketchbook and practice building them in Sketch and Figma and XD. And that obviously that's also going to help you become well versed with these programs as well. And then there's my quote right there: good artists copy, great artists steal. You know, what's interesting about this quote too, this is kind of a side note, but it's attributed to Pablo Picasso, but that quote was actually, it was basically taken from, I don't remember what other source, but it was taken from some other source like long, long time ago. And it was kind of repurposed over the years. So it's even questionable as to whether Pablo Picasso ever even said that, or whether he stole the quote. Uh, and then what about building experience? So I wanted to go ahead and make this meme because I think this is just so applicable, that we find ourselves in these positions where you kind of like need experience in order to gain experience. It's not ideal by any means, but it kind of is what it is. So, you know, because you see a lot of these positions that'll say like we're looking for a junior position, when really what they mean is we want someone with 5 to 10 years of experience. Uh, Sometimes it's not that dramatic, but they usually do say, like, even for the new positions, they say we want this person be to be able to display that they've been doing this for a couple of years. What they're really saying is we want to find somebody who, we feel like is competent in UX, who can really handle the challenges that we're going to be throwing at them. So we're gonna go over some of the ways that I found that really works to get experience right, to get real world experience right now. There really are many opportunities to build real world experience than you may realize. However, one of the things that I always tell new UX designers, no matter what, is stop waiting for experience to be handed to you. And I know this sounds weird, because we've kind of been conditioned to believe that essentially have to how we have to be in a job in order to get experience. But there's actually a lot of go about getting real world experience without necessarily being in a job. And I say that you have to believe in yourself before anyone else can believe in you. I know that sounds super cheesy, but um, you don't want to doubt yourself if you're having a difficult time finding work. You just work on these side projects until you build up enough momentum for somebody to take a chance on you. One of the so uh, this so actually this is these right here are just fantastic resources for getting that initial experiences. uh these are AngelList is a really great resource. That's where I actually an area where I built my experience. So think of AngelList as think of it as like a job post, a job board, but specifically for startups. Now, uh, startups are going to be in all sorts of different kinds of phases, from like the very, very beginning stages to, they've been doing this for like 5, 6 years. And what I've been able to do, what helped me that I think is going to help you guys quite a bit, is there's a lot of really new startups that just can't really afford to they can't really afford to pay people to do the kind of work that they're looking for. I know it's not ideal to do paid work, but at the same time, uh, it's a really good way to get your foot in the door. That's how I did like 2 unpaid internships. Again, I know it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing, and it did help me to put something on my resume that did was one of the contributing factors to me getting hired. Conservation X Labs is an example of a group that I absolutely is something that's actually very near and dear to my heart. Uh, to give it a little bit of context about a group like Conservation X Labs, there are uh, so many groups of tech minded people who care about a certain cause. For Conservation X, that is about environmental safety, about preserving ecosystems, protecting the leopards and things like that. And but you'd also find other groups that are, let's say, if you care about LGBTQ issues, if you care about social justice, if you care about Black Lives Matter, I guarantee that there are groups out there that are centered around something that you really care about. And you'll find that these are normally groups that they'll have like hackathons, they'll have like people working on working on startups that are related to this particular cause. uh, and yeah, I mean, it's also like a really great way to network and to meet people who are interested in that specific cause that are also in tech. DevPost is a fantastic resource for hackathons. And I think that a lot of people, they'll hear the word hackathon and they'll get kind of nervous. They'll think like, oh, do I need to be tech savvy in order to do that? And what was funny is that when I went to my first hackathon, I was actually a bit surprised, because I thought that it was, again, I had those same ideas, and then I got there and found that most of them were, new people that were just trying to get their foot in the door, which I thought was really awesome. And I, the nice thing about things like hackathons is that sometimes companies will actually use this as a recruiting tool to be able to find people. So like if you if you participate in a hackathon and it's, you're able to go pretty far with it, what is, that could actually lead to you getting seen, lead to it, uh, whatever project you were working on getting created in real life. I know actually my sister she's a virtual reality company that lasted for about 6 years that was just based on a hackathon idea. So you get a lot of really cool things happening in places like that. X Prize is, you can kind of think of it as a big uh, competition to solve some of the world's greatest needs and the world's greatest issues. And they will post they'll post tech challenges, they'll post engineering challenges, things like that. Brings in a huge gamut of people from all these different backgrounds to solve some kind of problem. One of the that I did when I was starting out is I actually did participate in an X Prize challenge, and it was actually around my background. So my background is in the marine sciences, and the issue that they were facing is that there were all these buoys that were out in the ocean, and they were collect about a terabyte worth of data every day. This is owned by like the NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they wanted that converted into some kind of usable data for people, just everyday people. So I assembled a team and created two apps for them. It went pretty far. That was again another one of those things that helped as that foundational experience for me. You can find volunteer opportunities on LinkedIn as well, just the same as if you were searching for jobs. So I really, really recommend just even go search for volunteer opportunities UX in LinkedIn. You're probably going to find some things. And volunteer match is another really great way to start building experience too. Um, word of the wise that I always say to people is always make sure that whatever experience you're building does not violate NDA agreements, or it can be worked out in some kind of way. So for those of you guys that don't know, an NDA agreement, basically it's it's a legal contract that you sign that says you can't release, you can't talk about the work we were doing. You can't release this stuff because obviously, it's got some reason for being protected. So whenever I go to a volunteer opportunity or I'm creating something and then it turns out that I can't talk about it at all, then I just I usually pass on it because I've already got the experience I need, and I'd probably just need it for like a portfolio builder. I would say for your case, if you run into one of those situations and you can't talk about it, then consider is it going to be valuable to still gain this experience even though I can't show any of the work? Or if you can't show any of the work, then would you be able to work out that you could display a I guess like some kind of symbolism of what you did, instead of showing the screenshots itself, you do like a drawing of it and then you talk about the overall problem. uh I found usually you can kind of work those issues out, but I like to be able to show as much as I can. I also encourage you guys to be on LinkedIn. Really, really, really on LinkedIn. Be active there. I can't tell you how many just incredible connections I've made through LinkedIn, and talk about why LinkedIn is important. So there was this quote from that I pulled from Payscale where they said over 70% of the jobs are found through networking. There's also a really good career book that I recommend you guys check out. That's called What Color is Your Parachute? And there's actually a part, it's this really interesting, like inverted pyramid where he's talking about how most people search through jobs through job boards, and yet the vast majority of the time, like that's actually turns out to be the least efficient way to do it, whereas the most efficient way is like networking and like different forms of networking. And yet it's the what people tend to do the least. So really, really get on LinkedIn, um, be active, be posting. And and as far as LinkedIn goes, I want you to think of it as if let's say you're like 100 miles away from the nearest grocery store, and you've got this big, big, expansive field. Okay, so if you're constantly networking through like LinkedIn, think of it as like you're kind of going out into the field and you're growing your crops, you're watering them, and you're just doing that a little bit every day, and you're growing this just over time. What I find a lot of people do, and I've been guilty of this myself, is if you find, once you find yourself in a position where you are ready to go out into the job market, you are ready to get hired, uh, it's, you don't really have that um, those connections to fall back on. Uh, it's unfortunate, but it happens a lot. So that's why I tell people, like, no matter where you are in your career right now, in your stage of job searching right now, just make sure you're constantly on LinkedIn. You're constantly talking to people, because you really never know where these kind of things are going to lead. Um, cool. So as far as what you'd be posting on LinkedIn, uh, and what I say about this is that if you're, you're obviously very serious about studying user experience at this point, or you are, you have studied it and you're on the job search. So I say that, if you're branding yourself as a UX professional, then show up as a UX professional. Even if you don't have that first job, you do have those fundamental skills that or at least you're building those fundamental skills to be able to get hired. So, one of the things that I encourage people to do is talk about your story on LinkedIn. And it really doesn't matter like where you are, in your stage. Like I've heard of, people who are 16 and they got their first job and they're talking about like their experiences from their first job on LinkedIn. Um, I say, you know, I say to wherever you are right now, talk about your experiences, talk about like what you have learned. Um, I, you know, Teaching people what you learned and as far as user experience goes is really the best way to learn the material yourself. So like if you learned about, Jacob Nielsen's heuristics, you learned about, I don't know, you learned about, like, setting wireframes. You learn about some things about information architecture. Talk about it in an intelligent way, because when you're posting about this and you're saying like, hey, this is what I've learned, you're kind of like teaching it to other people. It's not only helping you learn that material, but then it's also helping other people absorb what you learned. Um, I also encourage you guys, like, if you feel comfortable with this, like, find some kind of platform to get yourself out there. So if you're like me, you like writing a lot, Medium's actually a really great place to go. I've actually seen people who were, they were in an internship. They're not that far in their career, but they're still writing about like their internship. They're saying, hey, this is what I learned from my internship. Um, I think proactive stuff like that, where you're getting yourself seen by people who can get you hired or can point you in the direction of people who can get you hired, is really a good idea. Uh, if you're doing some kind of design challenge, and when I say design challenges, like I know that's kind of a bad word in our industry, because you'll see jobs that will have people do design challenges and then like ghost them later. But uh, this is going back to what I was talking about previously, where you're just like, you're looking at how some of these, for example, some of these sites that are set up. You're reverse engineering them, you're breaking them down, you're learning something from it, and then you can use that as LinkedIn content. You're like, hey, look, this is what broke down. This is what I got out of it. Um, this is what I think what works. This is what I think doesn't work. Also, other things too, like there's about a million different uh, like challenges that you can find that are related to building your UX skills. So like there's like randomizers out there where uh, you like push a button and then it gives you like, it tells you to make an app, a dog grooming app for ladies in their 50s who are busy, and they've got French Pomeranians. And then you're like, cool, I got this, this like randomized thing. I'm gonna make uh basically make like a design study off that. Um, Stuff like that is going to help you learn as well, and it's going to help build your confidence. Uh, and then other things too, like I've found that even when I just had a couple of years of experience, I started a podcast around user experience. And the reason why I did this was not because I felt like I knew everything, but it's because I wanted to talk to other experts in UX. You know, one of the things that that I've actually found work to really get people, uh, people who have been doing this for a while engaged is to ask them to be a guest on your show. Uh, and because like if you're, if you message, let's say you message, I don't know, you message Jacob Nielsen and you say, "Hey, Jacob, can I talk to you for an hour?" What's he going to say? Most of the time, I think chances are he's going to say, "No, sorry, I'm busy," if he responds at all. But then if you phrase it as like, "Hey, I've got this podcast, I'm looking for guests, and I really, really love what you do with the Nielsen Norman group. I'd like to bring you on as a guest." He's probably going to say, "Oh yeah, sure, I'd love to come on. What time do you want to do it?" And it's really cool because again, that helps you not only create content that gets you seen ultimately, but then it puts you in a position where you're learning a lot of really good material. I do LinkedIn lives as well. So I'm personally somebody who likes appearing on camera. I like just going live and talking to a bunch of people like I'm doing with you guys right now. Um, and just make sure you're constantly talking to experts. You're getting their feedback on things. And there is a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. Uh, but I would say probably the wrong way to do it would be like uh, just pestering people who are really busy versus uh, you know like what I was talking about here. You're creating some kind of value that you're putting out there that you're allowing them, you're asking them to be a part of. Obviously, this isn't set in stone. You can go about networking however you want. I'm just saying this is something that's worked for me. And then some of the common things, the common objections that I do hear from people you know, who are, I guess, nervous about going on LinkedIn. I say hands down, LinkedIn is going to help you. I guarantee it, and I can promise it's actually not nearly as scary as a lot of people make it seem like creating some kind of content. Uh, One of the things I hear is I'm shy and I'm an introvert. So this is something that I think is really funny because I think the term "I'm shy and I'm an introvert" gets confused quite a bit. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert and I'm talking to 200 people right now. Um, I would not say I'm shy, but um, really, like, it's if you feel uncomfortable with putting yourself out there in some kind of ways, like, first off, I'd say, like, find something that actually does mesh your personality. Like if you feel more comfortable writing, go ahead and do that. Even if you're just, you just post like a paragraph on LinkedIn that says, "Hi, my name is so and so. I'm learning this. I learned this skill today." Boom. Okay. I mean, that's an easy short step. So I say little baby steps is better than nothing. Um, I don't think I'll look good on camera. Okay. Again, you don't have to appear on camera like I'm doing right now. But it, one of the things that I've noticed too is neither do some of the most well-respected UX designers out there. So, look at people like Jared Spool, look at Jacob Nielsen, look at like Don Norman. Like, do you think those guys are going to win the GQ GQ magazine? Or they're going to be on the cover of GQ magazine? I don't think so. But they're well known. They're for a reason because they make themselves well known. Um, I've heard people say easy for you to say you're an expert. Again, guys, I came from the exact same position as you. I was in your position, like actually it was probably more like 3.5 years ago, but like I've been in the same position as you guys, so I get it. Um, what if people criticize me? I mean, I've been criticized a lot whenever I'm presenting something, whenever I'm doing a LinkedIn live, whenever I do a podcast, Medium articles that I've written. I put out some somewhat controversial opinions about user experience that have gotten me a lot of heat. But at the same time, I found people on LinkedIn, for the most part, they're pretty nice. So who cares? Everybody's going to have a difference of opinion. Putting yourself out there and getting criticized is better than not putting yourself out there at all. Uh, and will anyone take me seriously? Who cares if they will? Who cares if they won't? I mean, it's like I said, like I know 16-year-olds who are going on LinkedIn and just talking about like their experience in their first jobs. But I also want to remind you is that there's always going to be someone who knows more than you do, but there's always going to be people who know less than you do as well. So think about it from like if you're in a boot camp right now, okay, there's people who just heard about user experience yesterday and they don't know about boot camps. Talk about your boot camp experience. That's actually going to be valuable to somebody. Uh, Basically, I say like your strategy is just be the worst kept secret in the room. It's marketing 101. So just make sure that uh, you're not, even if you're doing your boot camp, that people know who you are. Because that really is going to make a huge difference for you. If it feels like it's, what I suggested, if putting yourself out there feels uncomfortable, it means you're growing. Really, really just say, go out there, just do it. Um, some additional tips I want to put about regarding LinkedIn is connecting with someone. So what I mean by that is just like sending someone a LinkedIn request and then kind of not going from there. I get that a lot. I get a lot of just out of the blue LinkedIn requests. I usually accept them, but if this is somebody who they uh, you're interested in like learning about them, you're interested in um, hearing about their experiences, or you wanted to connect with them for a reason, like I really just encourage you, like put a little note, say like, hey, I heard about you from this other source, or I've read your articles, really liked what you're doing. um, things like that is definitely going to help you. Some people are definitely open and free and willing to talk to you just one on one. So that'll be, definitely like make sure that if you're going to connect with someone that you're kind of doing it meaningfully. Be consistent in your posting too, is what I say is like, I usually do my live streams every Monday and Thursday. Um, and I think it's important to hold yourself accountable. Like if you're going to just post on LinkedIn, then, make sure that you're not going to go a month and then post again, because that you may as well just not post it at that point. Uh, Also, like I said, guys, remember that you know more than someone else. There's people who are going to know more than you. There's also going to be people who know less than you. I say document your experiences, kind of like teach what you're knowing, because I think more often than not, somebody's going to find it valuable. Uh, Show off your skills and what you're learning, guys. Really, like you're coming into a new field. This is probably feels like you're drinking out of a fire hose, but if you're regurgitating that information, you're kind of putting your own spin on it, and you're kind of like teaching, so to speak. You're you're making a LinkedIn post or writing article about it. That's going to be helpful to somebody. Uh, I also say like tell your story too, because people UX is a field where so many different people are coming in from this background, coming in from different backgrounds. We love hearing about teachers who transition to UX. We love hearing about firefighters who transition to UX. We love hearing about attorneys who transition to UX. Like, why did you go into UX? What was your uh, what was your reasoning for doing this? What appealed to you about UX? Like, people love hearing that kind of stuff, and I think that uh, that's definitely it's encouraging to other people who are in the same boat, and then it's also like even more senior people, like they can relate to that because they probably gone through something like that at some point. And also, what do you care about? Like, for me, like I said, I care about a lot of ecological issues. I care about animal conservation. uh how does UX tie into that? If you care about, you care about gay rights issues, how does UX tie into that? If you care about politics, how does user experience tie into that? You're going to be able to, not only for the projects you create, but then like the stuff you talk about to the UX public, so to speak. you're going to be able to talk about it in much more sophisticated terms if this is something that's very meaningful to you than if you're talking about, I don't know, H&R Block and why UX in taxes is good when you don't give a shit about taxes. Another thing that I really recommend you guys check out, again, this is like, this is not, I don't have any affiliations with this guy, but I went through his course. I think it was like $150 or something. But Brendan Rogers, he has a personal branding course on Teachable, and the link is in the show notes. So you guys can, if you're interested in checking that out, you can get that. That really helped me out a lot. So I recommend you, if you're interested in really building your LinkedIn presence, check out his course. Okay, so as far as your resume and your portfolio, this is, I kind of encompass this as like part of your personal brand. So think about your resume. Like, what is the purpose of your resume? What is the purpose of your portfolio? What's the purpose of a cover letter? It's essentially to market yourself. It's to, sell a company on the idea of hiring you, of bringing you on. And it's really important to think about, like, to really do this strategically. And I want to first talk about the resume, because I think this is a common thing that I see people get hung up on. So there's for those of you guys who don't know, there's programs out there that are called applicant tracking systems, or ATS. They're called ATS bots, and essentially what they are is, it's basically like a big filter for job applications. So let's say that I work at Uber and I put out a job posting for a product designer, and I get 1,000 applications, and I only have, let's say I've got a couple hours every day to look at job, or maybe like an hour to look at like applications. That's not going to be really feasible when I've got so many to comb through. So what I would, what I'm doing in this case, or me hypothetically as the hypothetical HR person from Uber, is that I'm going to have an ATS bot. And essentially what this is like, this is a way of basically paring down the resumes that the bot deems to be a good fit. I'm sure most of the times, whenever you get an auto rejection letter, chances are it actually came from an ATS bot. It didn't actually come from a person rejecting your resume. It came from an ATS bot. So you really want to be able to word your resume in a way that is going to get seen by the resume bot. And we're going to talk about how you can do that. So I should actually probably explain a little bit more of like how this works. So like, if they, with the job description that they post out there, usually what it's trying to do is it's trying to match up keywords from your resume to that job description. I actually even had a friend of mine who applied to work at the company I'm at, and the first time he applied, it just like, he got an auto rejection email, and then just like a couple of words to match more closely what the job description was, even though it was like fluffy words. And then he immediately got a call from the recruiter. So it's really crazy how this stuff works. What I recommend for you guys to be able to match up your resume is Resume Worded. This is a free or at least the basic version of it is free. You can actually still get a lot with the free version, so I recommend you check it out. But basically what it is you upload your resume to Resume Worded, and then you post the job description in there, and then it gives you it spits out a score, and it tells you, on a scale of 0 to 100, how much your resume lines up. It tells you, things like, what is the impact? What is the brevity? What is the style? How much do your skills line up? And sometimes getting an interview really is as simple as just tweaking a few keywords. Like, oh, it's crazy, and I think it's actually kind of a dumb game that we have to play, because like it really should be the best person for the job to get hired, but it's the best person who gets hired that also got past the ATS bot. So your first job, get past that ATS bot, get in front of a person by making your resume, custom tailored to that job description, where you're even mirroring some of the words that they use. What about cover letters? So guys, I'm going to say this as a disclaimer right now. This is my personal opinion, but I actually don't write cover letters at all, as weird and counterintuitive as this sounds. So like, this is something that I pulled from an article on Medium that I wrote. So what I found is that a lot of people will approach the job hunt with like this. So they'll put their resume, their cover letter, and their portfolio all at equal importance. And the reason why I don't do that is because I found that, writing a custom cover letter, in my experience, like, it takes a lot of time. And then it just like, the vast majority of the time that I write these cover letters, it doesn't even make it past the ATS bot anyway. So the way I've structured this, and guys, you can take this or leave it with whatever you will, but like, I actually put my online presence as my highest priority, because if I'm getting seen by people and they see the content that I'm putting out, they see the knowledge that I'm sharing with people, and they really see like what kind of value I bring to the UX community, I kind of treat that as like my, my cover letter, so to speak. Um, and then the next thing I do is like what I can do. So I kind of phrase this. I group this and from like my portfolio, the Medium articles I write, a lot my my resume, just kind of like showing my skills. I kind of like bundled it into there. Actually, the resume is down here, but basically this is like Medium articles I've written. This is like projects I've worked on. This is like hackathons I've won, things like that. And then I kind of put the resume at like the lowest point. So it is definitely important, but I wouldn't say it's really like the biggest thing that I prioritize. And this actually has worked out very, very well for me. So you guys can, give it a try, give your own little spin on that. But I'm just saying that's how I approach it. And you may find some value in doing something similar. And then I also want to talk about portfolios. Now, we're really not going to like dive deep into this, but I want to just kind of like briefly touch on portfolios. So really want to think of your portfolio. Think of the person who's going to be looking at your portfolio. Most of the time, it's going to be a hiring manager, or it's someone in some kind of position, some kind of decision maker position, where they're going to want to essentially see the meat of what you can do. And the reason why I put the Avengers right here is I want you to think about all the hype that was built up around the Avengers, right? And then imagine this scenario where, like, I don't know how many of you guys are Avengers fans, but think about if you went to one of the Avengers movies, and you sat there for 2 hours, and it turned out that all the characters got along, and Thanos wasn't really a bad guy. He's just like, he's a nice person, and everybody's sitting around sipping tea, and everybody gets what they want, and then the movie ends. Does that really sound like the kind of movie you'd want to watch? No, it wasn't. You want to see like all these struggles. You want to see the characters like, you want to see them learn. You want to see them grow. You want to see them encounter some of these hardships. And I really think about portfolios needing to be structured in a way kind of like this. So we're going to go a little bit into that, but basically what I want you to think about is like, don't just show off what went perfect. Because I see this a lot with like new UX designers. They try and show off like everything went right, but doesn't really tell me about how you handle problems. So leading into my point, your portfolio may not be as engaging as you think. I'm saying may because I haven't seen your portfolio, but you got to think about it like, how are you really drawing people in? And when I was giving that example of the Avengers, I have seen some portfolios that just, they're not as engaging as they could be. And because they're not talking about like, where did things go wrong? How did you solve these problems? What limitations did you run into? What how could this have been structured better? Like, I think stuff like that really makes your portfolio interesting. So I'm going to talk about three different things. The first one is actually what I've been talking about is tell me everything. Don't just tell me what went right. Tell me the shortcomings. Tell me what went wrong. Tell me like how you ran into, like what happened when the person you were working with completely, you're doing this project for completely changed their mind. They said, no, we need to go in a different direction. And then you just waste a lot of time. Like, how did you work through that problem? How did you handle your, I don't know, like sketch license being revoked, and then you're like, oh crap, we lost a lot of work and it's locked up. How are we able to get around this? How did you handle a lot of the problems? And even with my portfolio, I never say like everything went great. I did a case study, I did a research project, and then it turned out everything was perfect in the end. No, I talk about my limitations, I talk about what went sideways. um I like to talk about this stuff because they're not just looking at your portfolio and your skills, but they're also looking at you as a person. They want to see how you handle a lot of these problems that are going to come up, because they eventually will. So showing how you handle conflict, awareness of your limitations is honestly, in my opinion, is far more useful than having a perfect case study, because no case study is ever perfect. Doesn't matter like how how long you've been doing this for. Like there's going to be some kind of limitations. There's going to be problems. Talk, show your soft skills in that case. Demonstrate your soft skills along with the hard skills. Uh, Next thing that I really recommend you guys do, I know this is not always possible to do, but I really encourage you to just like get uh, get this as much as possible, is to tell me your results with stats and numbers. So this was an actual screenshot from a guy named Simon Pan. So he was a former product designer at Uber, and he created this case study around Uber that it went viral. It actually just got a lot of people's attention. I don't know exactly what that did for him, but I know that it was a very popular case study, and it's something that's referenced quite a bit. And what he was doing is he was constantly measuring what kind of impact was being had on Uber's product. He was measuring before he started. He was measuring after, the end results. He was constantly like picking up on like how is their app set up now, and how are my UX decisions benefiting that business as a whole. So he talks about things like the error distance between requested pickup location and actual pickup location decreased by 34%. Driver wait time decreased by 20%. High precision pickup rates increased by 17%. Multi-contact rates decreased by 3%. And what I want you to look at is this kind of information ultimately translates to the business, the business goals, like the KPIs that they have. So like what are they like how are they making money, and how does this ultimately help the business as a whole? How does it help them grow? Because remember, like they're not going to be hiring you just for just to make customers happy. I mean, yeah, it might be kind of part of it, but then they also want to make sure that they're bringing you on knowing that you're going to be able to provide more value than you're getting paid in that current moment. So that's the way I think of it. uh, as I stated, guys, I do come from a science background, so I'm very data driven, but this is something that's worked out for me quite a bit whenever I'm explaining the stats behind my projects. So really, really encourage you guys, like measure your data, measure how much of a positive impact your research is having, present that, because that does help tell your story in a pretty profound way. Um, and this is also something I was talking about, is you're not just designing for users. By the way, I think users is kind of a funny term. I was actually watching The Social Dilemma, and they said that there's only two industries where the term users is held. It's drug dealing and software. Thought that was kind of a funny tidbit, but you're basically not just designing for users, or we could say customers. You're designing for a company that's trying to make money and improve its product. So you really want to be able to not just speak to how you're helping these customers, but speak to the company on their level. Like how is bringing you on really going to help their business impacts and their KPIs in the long run? Uh, so you want to show that you can improve business outcomes, like, how did you onboard new customers with your design decisions? Did your work translate to increasing sales? Did it work to decreasing checkout time? Did it reduce bounce rates? Did it get more people to the checkout screen? Obviously, these are just some examples that came off the top of my head, and uh, you're not going to be able to have, these are a lot of like e-commerce examples, but let's say for, if you go on Angel List and you find a startup, for example, and they said that we want you to do some work with us. Uh, how did you help that startup grow? How did you help it get more How did your design decisions get it more visibility? How did it get them traction? Or like if you're doing this for like a volunteer, like a nonprofit. Okay, let's say, I don't know, Save the Penguins, for example. Okay, how did your UX decisions get this nonprofit more donations? How did it get more? How did your UX decisions increase the amount of people that are now volunteering for them to like go wave signs around and collect money? How did it bring more visibility to to saving penguins, for example? You can get really creative with this, but I really, really, really encourage you guys, like, treat this as like the bedrock of your UX projects, because when you're showing that you're not just talking about what you changed, but you're showing that the impacts you had ultimately had a positive outcome. That tells a really powerful story. And then I just want to show this one more time because I really, really do want to hit this in. This was actually something that he had at the very end of his case study, at like the very, very end, where he told his entire story. He showed like pictures, even pictures of him like out on the streets in San Francisco, and he was taking pictures of like the Uber drivers and the customers and like where he was, and he was like doing all these measurements and stuff. And he showed through his UX decisions what he was able to accomplish. Again, guys, this is a super, super powerful way to tell your case studies in a way that's going to have a really meaningful impact. And, even I say, like, even if you're in a situation where you just have like theoretical work, I recommend you guys do real world work as much as possible. But even with like theoretical stuff, if that's all you got, how can you test it? How can you show that these design decisions you have are actually making made some kind of progress? All right. And then the third thing that I want to talk about is present your portfolio as if the viewer does not speak your language and has a short attention span. So this is something that I personally, um, I like to talk about, because sometimes you'll run into portfolios that are just like, it's just walls and walls of paragraphs. And there's like, if you were just skimming through it, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense as to what's being talked about here. So imagine, like, you don't want to, yes, you do want to be able to like talk about it, but then you also want to have graphs that show what you're, highlight what you're talking about. You want to have, um, like have some kind of graphics that show like what you're working on. If you can, if you're allowed to, show screenshots. If you can't, but you were able to work out that you could have like some kind of representative drawing of what you were working on, show that. Let's see. Yeah. So the reason why I say present your work as if the person reading it does not speak your language and has has a short attention span, is because recruiters and hiring managers really have very limited time, and they want to be able to see your story in a very clear, concise way and really get the overall impact of what you're trying to tell them. I think I heard one time that like they really only have like less than a minute, like between 30 seconds and like a minute to look at your portfolio project. So you really want to be able to get them engaged from the get-go and not spend a ton of time just setting it up and explaining it. Just get right to the meat of it. And I really recommend you guys, like, as you're refining this and you're looking at like how you can pare it down, you can make your UX projects more concise. Get a friend, get a coworker, get a partner, you know, your romantic partner, or like somebody, to look at a project and see if they can understand it in 45 seconds or less. Just kind of like skim through it without you giving them any kind of context. Um, I've had to go through this quite a bit myself, so like I understand the frustration of putting a lot of work into a portfolio project just to have to like pare it down. But um, it's going to be more impactful if you can tell it in a clear and concise way that gets straight to the point than just having like, a wall of like 20 pages of an essay about what your project was. So you really don't want to overload the text and boring details. Cut to the point, structure it in a clearly defined manner, have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and use visuals strategically. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is kind of the job application process itself, and just some like initial feedback I have. And then, once you get that UX job, what you can do to really make sure you're succeeding in that role. Uh, First thing that I found is, and this is, maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I've talked to a lot of, um, I've talked to a lot of people who worked in Silicon Valley. I've applied to a lot of jobs in Silicon Valley. I've personally found that as a new UX designer, I wasn't really able to get work there. But what did work for me, ironically enough, was actually not targeting those really well-known tech industries. Um, because think about like San Francisco, or just the I guess Silicon Valley as a whole. Think of how many UX designers are there, and like how many of them have been doing this for a while. How many of them are competing for a lot of these jobs? And as you guys know, there's unfortunately there's not a lot of junior positions. It's mostly like they are looking for people with experience in very heavily saturated tech markets. I found that it's a lot more difficult to get hired. But what I think is actually really interesting is the markets that people aren't paying attention to. Okay. So for me, I actually I was born and raised in Denver. I know that a lot of you guys are from the Denver UX Newbies group. Um, what actually worked for me quite a bit was it's kind of a funny and ridiculous story when I think back on it, but I put in just kind of like a casual, like I wasn't even thinking about it too much, but I applied for a UX position in Knoxville, Tennessee. I had never even, I didn't even know who the company was with. It was through recruiting. It was through Tech Systems, a recruiting agency, and they just kind of vaguely described the job and said we're looking for a UX designer with a couple of years of experience. And I applied to that position, and then later I get a call from the recruiter from Tech Systems, and they're like, "Hey, we have this position out in Knoxville, and what do you know about Knoxville?" Is like, okay, I mean, at that time, the only thing I really knew about that was like an old episode of The Simpsons where they go to Knoxville, and then the Sunsphere like crashes on their car, and I was like, I don't know anything about it, but um, that was actually the job that I ultimately got hired at. And it's so crazy to think about because like where I went to, it was a much lower saturated tech market. It was not it was not like a place that everybody's like rushing to get to Knoxville to work in tech. Uh, but that actually worked to my advantage. And there's a lot of markets out there where it is um, it is easier to get hired. It's like Huntsville, Alabama actually has a pretty good tech scene. Where I work in Utah, there's a city called Lehigh that is it's like about half an hour drive south of Salt Lake City. Booming tech market, but again, it's not one of those. It's not Silicon Valley. Not as many people know about it. It's easier to get hired in markets like that. really recommend just like keep your eyes open. Um, what I some of the a question that I normally ask people is, imagine that you found a position that is located in the middle of nowhere. It gets boiling hot in the summer, it gets freezing cold in the winter. You don't know a single soul there, but all your needs are met. If you had to move, if you needed to move, and I realize not everybody has the option to move, but for those of you, for some people who do, if you had, if uh, you were offered a position out there and it meant you getting those first vital couple of years of experience, would you do it? Something to think about. Um, Also, another thing, I know this is probably a little bit disappointing to hear um, because these boot camps do tend to say like, oh, you're going to get hired at Google, you're going to get hired at Microsoft, you're going to get hired at Airbnb. I mean, it's possible to get hired at those places several years down the line. I say that because that's probably, not saying you can't get hired at those places, but it's probably going to be it most likely what's going to happen is you're going to get hired at like a lesser known company, like a startup, or um, I don't know, some other company that's like not as big, but they need UX people. So I would say for like top tech companies, if that's your goal, great, awesome. Um, but think about like how you can work up to that. I also say try looking for jobs with the web designer position. This was actually somebody who I interviewed on LinkedIn Live named William Natim, and he said that jobs that they post the title web designer, uh, they really don't. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword because like if they're looking for they're looking for a somebody and they don't know as much about user experience. I mean, of course, like there are some not so great issues in that, but then the positive side of it is that they're looking for somebody who can come in and educate them about UX, as opposed to some of these companies that have like a very strongly formed UX team. Um, it was something I heard from him that I thought was really interesting advice. So you can definitely look for, in addition to looking for like UX positions, look for web designer positions. Give it a try. Also, don't expect a six-figure salary off the bat. Again, guys, that does take time. This is a field where you can make pretty decent money, but don't make money your top priority. And really do UX for the sake of UX, is what I say. And then I also say document all of your jobs you apply for. So um, this is an actual screenshot of some jobs that I applied for back in July when I was on the job hunt. I got laid off for COVID reasons, and I just made this big screenshot that said, this is the company that I applied to. This is the position title. This is the date they posted it. This is where it's located. These are the years of experience needed. I obviously didn't fill that in because I was just kind of going pretty quickly, but this is the company website, job URL. When did I apply for this? Did I speak with a recruiter? Did I speak with a hiring manager? When you're organized in this way, this is going to help you quite a bit. Again, guys, this is stuff like this is be in the show notes. I know I'm probably talking about a lot of stuff right now, but you're going to be able to read over the show notes and you'll get all this stuff. This is a suggestion of like what I normally use when I'm documenting. I'm documenting the jobs that I'm looking for. I'm asking like, what is the company? What's the position? The date posted, the location, years of experience requested, the company website, job URL, date I applied, date I spoke with a recruiter, date I spoke with the hiring manager, overall thoughts of the company. The reason why I think this is important is because hiring is a two-way street. Yes, you're looking for a job, but then you also want to know, is this a company that I want to work at too? Then once you've got that interview with the company you're excited about, what do you do next? This is something that has helped me quite a bit. It's what I call the value add project, and I actually wrote an article on Medium on it that you guys can check out. Again, that's in the show notes. Where pretty much what it boils down to is I say like really understand the company you're applying to inside and out. Not only that company, but the industry they're in. Understand the market they're in. Always come prepared with questions. Always know where they're falling short. Make it clear how you come into the picture, and connect your past skills to this company's needs. This is the article that I wrote, so if you guys want to check that out, I definitely recommend doing that. Called "How to Dramatically Increase Your Chances of Landing your next UX job, even if you have no prior experience." The link to that article is in the show notes, so don't scramble to write it down. You don't need to. Uh, and then once you've got that job, the next thing that you want to do is, oh, actually, sorry, there is something I do want to talk about with this. So essentially, once you understand that company and everything, the summary of this article and what I wrote about it is, you kind of create like some kind of like mock project around the around that company. So an example of like what I did that got me hired at Entrada, where I work right now, is it's in the property management software business. So I looked at how Entrada is set up. I looked at their competitors. I looked at how they're making money. How long they've been in business for, how they go about. Yeah, as obviously I'm going from an outsider's perspective. So as the job applicant at the time, I didn't have all the information, which is fine. But I basically put together this big like presentation that kind of said like that I showed um, I showed during the interview process, that said like, hey, this is where I see Entrada. This is how I see its competitors handling things. This is how kind of some of the areas I see that Entrada could use uh, some improvement. This is how, through my methodologies and my skills, that I would go about solving, thinking as an employee to solve these problems, and how I go about solving them. Uh, these are some of the considerations I take into place. This is where I would use some of these methodologies. And I really just presented it as like this big, like almost like a case study of what would um, what is going to make me an incredible employee for Entrada, and that impressed the hell out of them. In fact, I did that for a software consulting group, and at the end of that, they actually I got 2 simultaneous job offers just by doing that, because I really understood the company I was applying for and how I fit into their business model, and I made it explicitly clear. So you guys can read that article. Definitely recommend you check it out. It's going to help you quite a bit. And then once you've got that job, I've got one bit of advice for you guys. Document your work. Okay, document your work. Document your work. Document your work. I can't say that enough. The reason why I say that is several reasons. First off, in all of my, in my experience of, I think this is especially true at agencies, but also in my in-house role at Entrada Software, I'm always jumping between projects, and there's going to be times where I'm working on one section of the platform, and then it kind of becomes a lower priority, and then something else becomes a higher priority, and then I got to work on that, and then, oh no, maybe somebody quit, and now I got some of their work, so now I have to put that down, and I got to go to this, and then something else becomes a high priority, so I got to shift to that, and then that thing that I was working on the first time, like a few months has passed, and I don't really remember all the details. It's kind of fuzzy, so I say like be sure to document what you were the processes that you were going through, and essentially because so that way when you can jump back to it, and you can say like, oh yeah, that's why what I was doing in this section. Believe me, it'll save you on so many occasions. Another thing that I say is, because you're going to want to keep track of your accomplishments. It's going to be really difficult to remember what your accomplishments were if you were in a job and you, um, over the course of like 3 or 4 years, you're looking for another job, and you're trying to remember like, what did I accomplish at that? What I accomplished at that job. Um, Another interesting thing too is related to resumes. For that part that I was talking about with the stats on your portfolio, they say the same thing about your resume. So if you say like, I increased, I don't know, I increased customer retention rate by 29%. I mean, when you're keeping track of those kind of metrics, and then it allows you to update your resume a lot easier and a lot faster, and also allows you to get like much juicier content if you're just consistently keeping up with it. And also another thing too is, obviously you want to be mindful of NDAs here, but if you can talk about in whatever way that you've worked out with the HR department or your boss or whatever, that you can discuss work that you're talking about, even if you have to kind of like speak in a more theoretical and hypothetical tone, whatever's passed by their standards, stuff like this is going to help you tell that story more effectively. Again, obviously you want to be mindful of NDAs, but this is going to help. The summary of this is that it's going to help tell a better story on, your portfolio, on your resume. Even if you write your content you produce, like write a Medium article about like what you learned in, some of these general concepts that you learned in your first year of being a UX designer. Documenting your work is really going to help you do that. So for those little homework sections that I was talking about, I'm gonna post the link to the show notes in the chat. What I want you guys to do is just read through those show notes, and at the end of it, it's got like a little homework assignment. I want you to be able to take what you learned from each of these. Again, like everything's typed out, so you don't need to like scramble to remember what we talked about. It's all very detailed notes. But I want you to do each of those exercises because they're going to help you. It's going to help you quite a bit. All right. So to wrap this up, if you guys want to, before we go into the questions, if you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm listed as Samuel Harper, or Sharper UX is my handle. S Harper. I thought that was pretty creative. So definitely connect with me. What I do is like I host LinkedIn live stream shows every Monday and Thursday. So that is actually what I would recommend is like connect with me. That is the best way to come on and ask me questions, because I get a lot of people who connect with me on a pretty regular basis because I'm very active on Medium. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So that's how I found is the best way to like have conversations with people. So please don't come to me and say like, hey, can I talk to you for an hour? Can I can you critique my portfolio? Can you critique my resume? I'm gonna feel overwhelmed. So please just connect with me. Let me know that you watched my presentation, and then definitely like come to my live streams and just interact with me there. I totally welcome you guys to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and post those show notes, and we will take questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam. I thought that was really informative. You did an awesome job, like just teaching us about all kinds of things. I mean, you covered like everything possible, I think, but we do have some questions. So I'll ask just a couple because I know we're kind of going over time now. So I'm going to pick the ones that seem to be the most asked. So there were some more questions about your networking on LinkedIn and how to do that properly. One specific question that I thought was interesting was, what is the best way to network through LinkedIn or utilize your LinkedIn as a resource, like the ways you've listed, if you're currently connected with your employers but don't want them to know about your plans for a career change?
Okay, interesting question. Actually, that is a very good question. What? So what I would say is, I mean, okay, so like if I'm assuming that, let's say you're in like a legal profession and you don't want your fellow attorneys and your boss to know that you're in user experience. What I would here's okay, so like here's the way I would probably use that. If I was in, let's say I'm a lawyer and I want to transition to UX, I would start talking about, I would kind of like approach it not as like I am a UX designer, but like I am interested in user experience. Like if they, they see it as more of like a curiosity that you're kind of itching right now. And you could talk about in this case, like how does your current field intersect with user experience? And then you're like, oh, I've seen like uh, how my user experience ties in with litigation, ties in with court processing. Um, I mean, you're still kind of making it relevant to your previous position, but then you're also kind of like talking about in this new area. Now, if they, I mean, I guess it's kind of like a situational question. So I'm not sure. I don't want to like give give like a very explicit advice on what you should do, but I would say like if you're uncomfortable with going full out and saying yes, I'm a UX designer, um, then just talk about it more as like a curiosity point, and talk about like how it kind of ties in with like your current profession. I think that's something that you could talk to, at least in your initial starting phase before you're doing your boot camp, so you're not really getting on anybody's radar. And then once you've kind of more fully transitioned into user experience, then you can go fall out and start a podcast or start writing on Medium or do whatever you want.
Cool. I like that. Oh, this is a very relevant question. I think it just came up in the chat. How did you survive 8 months between boot camp and your first UX job? And would you recommend taking a crappy minimum wage job until you can get something better? Or what would you say to someone who's been searching for a long time and had to hang in there and figure that out?
Sometimes I feel like I didn't survive at all, and then I look back, I'm like, how did I get through that? I'm joking, by the way, when I say that. It was hard, but it wasn't impossible. What in my particular case, like um, I actually, I guess like to give a little bit of context. Um, After I came back, I was working in Anchorage, Alaska, doing field work out there. That was my previous position, and the way my situation played out was that I kind of knew that I didn't want to be in that position. I was going into some very, very deep depression, and it was really affecting my health, like my mental health and my physical health, quite a bit. And I just knew, like, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I need to get out of this. And I also kind of like read some a little bit of things about UX at the time. But then I just at a point I kind of like I moved in with my parents and I got a job driving a school bus. It wasn't something that required a a degree or anything, but it was a decent paying job that I was able to support myself with in the time being. Obviously I don't know everybody's situation, but I would say the fundamental thing is like like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Where on the bottom you've got like survival, and then on the top you've got enlightenment. You want to make sure you're fulfilling each of those like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So like if you're unemployed right now and you feel you really need to have money coming in, do whatever you need to do. In my case, like when I was going through my boot camp, I was driving the school bus full time, and then I also had a job as a museum educator. So I was basically working 60-hour weeks so that I could survive, essentially. And that wasn't easy, but it's something I had to just kind of like piece things together and make it work. Uh, I would say like with whatever your particular situation is, um, just like if it feels like that's what's going to be the best option for you, then do it. Um, because you definitely do want to be able to pay your bills, you want to be able to eat, you want to be able to like have a you don't want to live under live under a highway and live in a box and steal Wi-Fi from Starbucks. So while you're doing this, um yeah, I mean if you feel like that works for you, then by all means do it. um but in the meantime, obviously you want to be very proactive, and like even if you take a job that you is not ideal, but you're only there for like a couple months. Like if you're like a barista at Starbucks, okay, you were there for 2 months. Like who cares? Sometimes they have these like very short-term jobs, and that's just they need that in order to survive. So if you're in that situation, I say don't overthink it, just do it and then plan from there.
Cool. I agree. Sometimes you just have to take those jobs and know that you're not going to be there forever, just to make it through. So let's see here. Here's another good one. When is the right time to start looking for jobs if you're still in boot camp or maybe you don't have a lot of experience? What's the best time to look for jobs?
I would say the best time would be now, sooner than later. If you, because like it's gonna take a while to be able to get hired. And I say like it comes back to that quote, like I think it was Confucius that said that was like, the best time to plant a tree was 200 years ago, or like 20 years ago. The next best time is now. Because like eventually your boot camp is going to end, or your college is going to end, and then you're not really going to have a job. So you want to be able to be as proactive as possible. And even I will say, even if you don't feel like you want to be applying to jobs right now, then do other things that helps, kind of like build your personal brand, so to speak. Get on LinkedIn, start talking about your experiences, like build your awareness of yourself from other people. Actually, kind of as a side note related to that, it's something I forgot to mention, but like applying jobs a traditional way is not a bad thing to do, but I say do that in tandem with networking and getting in front of people who can ultimately like help you in some kind of way.
So along with that, so say you have just, school projects in your portfolio and you don't have anything from like the real world, you don't have those statistics or anything to say that you made a difference, and it wasn't a product that was in the app store or anything like that. So you don't have a lot of information about how effective that was. How would you position your portfolio with limited projects that are all from school to get a job?
Okay. So as I stated in this, even if you are like you have only like a certain amount of like school projects, it's probably not a lot. I would say the best thing you can do in that case is kind of like do like kind of like put it out in the world in a mock setting, right? So if let's say you created some kind of like hypothetical project for to help like dog groomers, or it may not actually be used, but what can you do? Like, can you do like actual case studies around it where you're going to Petco and PetSmart, and you're talking to these dog groomers and you're seeing like how they go about doing these things. Like you're actually like getting photos of you like out like talking to them. You're kind of like, if you can't get real world stuff, and again, like I really recommend you guys get real world experience as much as possible, but I realize that's not always feasible right away. Make it as real world as possible, because you can still measure your project by talking to people, by seeing how they're interacting with your prototypes, by improving it, by taking it out again and doing doing field research. Um, again, it's like it's done is better than perfect. So if that's all you got, then make the most of it.
Very cool. Okay, I'm just going to pick one more question because I know we're way over time, and I think we might try some networking after this too. So I don't know if you're hanging around, Sam, but if you want to, we're going to network a little bit, and maybe you can answer another question or two. Then
Yeah, and also Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, before we go into this last question, I want to give you guys some time to access this Google Docs, the show notes that I put together. So I just now posted them in the chat. So I want you guys, like, please access that right away, open it up, print it out, like save it in a certain place, because um, this is going to, like, this is basically the meat of the presentation I had. And then this is also where, you know, you're going to be able to access those like little homework assignments and everything. If anybody hopped off and they didn't have time to review this, please share this with them, because this is going to help you quite a bit. It's going to be like the follow up to the presentation. So please access that now before we hop off.
Cool. So I just went on there because I'm actually going to put together all the different links, like the links from earlier when Dano was sharing. He wants some feedback from us, and I'll put that in the email too. So I'll be emailing all these links out, and I'll put them on our discussion board for the Denver UX Newbies chat.
Yeah.
Meetup.
So I saw that people tried to request access. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys access. Lene, please go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll give you guys access.
Okay, and then I'll put that up in the chat too, so that in our meetup group, so if anyone misses that or they're not here, it'll be available to you later. Okay, last question. This is always a great one. I'm gonna end on a boot camp question. Get ready. What is your
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your opinion on it being necessary for people to attend a boot camp versus like learning on your own or taking Coursera courses or Udemy or any of those other ones? What is your opinion on the essentialness of boot camps?
I say, you know, it's you guys are probably going to hate me because I'm going to be a little bit vague here, but they're really only as valuable as you make them. What I mean by that is, you know, if you are learning from a $10 Udemy course and you're able to, you know, like you can get into UX from watching, you know, theoretically from taking a $10 Udemy course and reading a bunch of articles. It's something that would require a lot of self-pace and a lot of self-discipline to be able to do. You could sign up for it. Similarly, you could sign up for a $10,000 boot camp or a $5,000 boot camp, or you could sign up for a $50,000, you know, master's degree or something. I wouldn't recommend that right off the bat, but what I'm saying is that you could basically like sign up for one of these programs that has like a very solid structure to it that teaches you the UX fundamentals. I say, like, really what it comes down to is like know what you can basically like how you learn and how you prefer to learn and what your budget is. You don't want to, obviously you don't want to go into a lot of debt for something that may have not helped you a lot as much as like if you were just very self-motivated. Okay. On that note, I posted another link. So I changed it to anyone with the link. So hopefully you guys will be able to access that. So please go ahead and try that, and then let me know in the chat if it works. I'm getting a lot of works. Cool. So think about, let's say that I need to go to the grocery store and it's 5 miles away. And you know, there's a bunch of ways I could get there. I could walk, I could take a bicycle, I could drive a car, I could, if I knew how to fly a helicopter, I could probably do that. It probably wouldn't be illegal to land in the parking lot, but I could do it. And think about like boot camps as a vehicle to get you to that ultimate goal. You're trying to get hired in UX. There's a lot of ways to go about getting that information that you need, but really like think about the end goal as the primary, and then the secondary is like you kind of think backwards, like will a boot camp help me? It might, but you got to think about like why why would it help you? What does it offer that is more beneficial to um, what is more beneficial to doing a boot camp than to doing self-study? What more beneficial to a boot camp than doing a 4-year college degree or a master's program or something? Um, what is like how does it offer mentorship? Does it offer a structured way to learn? Does it help you the create projects where you're actually like working through you're working through projects that you're going to be able to actually like showcase on your portfolio. Um, these kind of things, like if boot camp, especially like a specific boot camp, does that for you, then by all means go for it. If you think you can get that through self-study and self-teaching, do that. If you think that you need a college, like the structure of a college degree to be able to get you through that, I'm kind of like that. That's where I get a little bit iffy. But if you really think that that's what you need, fine, go for it. The outcome is, the outcome is ultimately more important than the vessel that gets you there. Is my point.
Yeah, totally. I do have a quick follow-up question on that. I think for me, the only thing I see different about boot camps versus self-study is that they tend to put you in a group of people to work with. So you're like on a team working together to do this project. How important is that, in your opinion, the working on a team with other designers for real world?
Yeah. So, you're talking about like if just like going through a cohort of people who are experiencing the same thing as you?
Well, so I know in a lot of the boot camps, they actually put the students in little teams. So they're working with other designers on a project. So I know like some jobs want you to have some experience working on a team and then others don't care. I don't know. I mean, in your opinion, how important is that to have had some experience working on a team?
I think it's definitely important, honestly. I mean, it's if you can show that you have been able to, you've been able to work with developers, with QA people, that you can play nice with them, that you can play nice with other UX designers, that you cannot be like this, this commanding asshole who demands that things be done your way or the highway. I think that's valuable in itself, to be able to display that kind of stuff if that's what whatever your program is gives you. And then also the other thing too is, even just working with like uh say like on theoretical products. I mean, not only like, yes, you're working with other people to collaborate on this idea. It's the same with hackathons. It's the same with um if you're doing like a little internship at a startup or something. When you are also working with a group of people who are supporting you, who are helping, kind of like being there, like by your side as you're growing, I think that also has a tremendous, like a tremendous psychological impact as well. Because you realize that either these are people in your boot camp who you're working with one on one, who are in the same position as you, who you can connect with. But then you've also got like your mentors, whether it's your mentor from your boot camp, or it's the people from these group projects that you're talking about, who may be more experienced. And they're kind of like, I don't know if they'd actually be involved or if they'd be mentoring, but like they're kind of like psychologically helping you through this. I think there's a lot of benefit in that as well.
Cool. Okay, well, I don't want to go too far over here. So I think that's it for tonight. And just a reminder, we do have that workshop coming up in February. So if you didn't get your question answered tonight, that's another opportunity to talk more about this topic. So if anyone wants to stick around, thank you so much, Sam. That was amazing.
Yeah.
You're so
And I
good.
posted, thank
Appreciate
you
it.
so much. I posted the link in the link for that presentation one more time in case you guys missed it, because I know there's a lot of comments being had. So definitely access that doc, print it out, save it, like keep it, because it's gonna be super beneficial for you.
Cool. Yeah, I'll send all that out to you. So if anyone missed it, I'll be sending that out and posting it. So we'll have it. So yeah, if you want to stick around for some networking, I think we're going to kick off some groups here and just hang out for a little bit. And Sam, you're welcome to join us, or if you need to go, that's fine too. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Let's take a like 5 or so minute break. We can all refresh, grab a drink or whatever you want to do. And then whoever's left will be in the networking group. We'll let Chance the Rapper guide us through this break.
Thanks,
See you guys
Ryan.
in a couple minutes.
So I don't wake up wonder where my baby at. Can I pay it back?